Hello, dear listener. My name is Douglas, and I am sickened by what's happening in this country right now. We need to look at the actual document, Project 2025. This is part one of a full reading of what they're calling Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise, Project 2025, Presidential Transition Project. I'm not going to edit this, so you're going to hear any of my mistakes, breaths, and or mouth noises as they occur. There's a copyright on this, 2023 by the Heritage Foundation, but they've distributed this thing on the internet everywhere for anybody to read, so you don't like me reading it aloud? Come at me, bro. Forward by Kevin D. Roberts, PhD, edited by Paul Dans and Stephen Groves. I'm going to skip the table of contents. You know what? I'm not going to completely skip the table of contents. I'm going to read the sections to you. Section 1, Taking the Reins of Government. Section 2, The Common Defense. Section 3, The General Welfare. Section 4, The Economy. Section 5, Independent Regulatory Agencies. Acknowledgements. This work, Mandate for Leadership 2025, the Conservative... Sorry, I skipped a page here. The Conservative Promise is a collective effort of hundreds of volunteers who have banded together in the spirit of advancing positive change for America. Our work is by no means the comprehensive compendium of conservative policies, nor is our group the exclusive cadre of conservative thinkers. The ideas expressed in this volume are not necessarily shared by all. What unites us is the drive to make our country better. First and foremost, we thank the chapter authors and contributors who gave so freely of their time in service of their country. We were particularly grateful to have help of dedicated members of the Heritage Foundation's management and policy teams. Executive Vice President Derek Morgan, Chief of Staff Wesley Coopersmith, Associate Director of Project 2025 Spencer Shretton, and Thomas A. Rowe Institute for Economic Policy Studies. Oh, that's a whole sentence, jeez. And Thomas A. Rowe Institute for Economic Policy Studies Director Paul Ray devoted a significant amount of their valuable time to reviewing and editing the lengthy manuscript and provided expert advice and insight. The job of transferring the work of dozens of authors and hundreds of contributors into a cohesive manuscript fell upon Heritage's formidable team of editors led by Director of Research Editors Therese Penfather, Senior Editor William T. Poole, Marla Hess, Jessica Lowther, Karina Rollins, and Kathleen Scaturo, without whose tireless efforts you would not be reading these words. The talented work of data graphics service managers John Fleming, Manager of Web Development and Print Projects Jay Simon, Director of Marketing Elizabeth Fender, Senior Graphic Designer Grace DeSandro, and Senior Designer Melissa Bluey came together to bring the volume to life. We also thank the dedicated junior staff who provided immeasurable assistance, especially Jordan Embry, Sarah Calvis, and Jonathan Moy. Most important, we are grateful to the leadership, supporters, and donors of each of the Project 2025 Advisory Board member organizations and those of the Heritage Foundation, without whom Project 2025 would not be possible. Thank you, Paul Dans and Stephen Groves. There is an entire 2-3 page list of the advisory board on here, which contains just groups with names like Concerned Women for America, the Heritage Foundation, which you already know about, the Independent Women's Forum, the James Madison Institute, Liberty University, there's a shock, the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, and Young America's Foundation. I'm not going to read the entire list. You can look that up for yourself. The 2025 Presidential Transition Project. A note on Project 2025. We want you! Exclamation mark. The 2025 Presidential Transition Project is the conservative movement's unified effort to be ready for the next conservative administration to govern at 12 noon, January 20th, 2025. Welcome to the mission. By opening this book, You are now part of it. Indeed, one set of eyes reading these passages will be those of the 47th President of the United States, and we hope every other reader will join in making the incoming administration a success. History teaches that a president's power to implement an agenda is at its apex during the administration's opening days. To execute requires a well-conceived, coordinated, unified plan and a trained and committed cadre of personnel to implement it. In recent election cycles, presidential candidates normally begin transition planning in the late spring of the election year, or even after the party's nomination was secured. That is too late. The federal government's complexity and growth advance at a seemingly logarithmic rate every 4 years. For conservatives to have a fighting chance to take on the administrative state and reform our federal government, the work must start now. The entirety of this effort is to support the next conservative president, whoever he or she may be. In the winter of 1980, the fledgling Heritage Foundation handed to President-elect Ronald Reagan the inaugural Mandate for Leadership. This collective work by conservative thought leaders and former government hands, most of whom were not part of Heritage, set out policy prescriptions, agency by agency, for the incoming president. The book literally put the conservative movement and Reagan on the same page, and the revolution that followed might never have been seen, save for this band of committed and volunteer activists. With this volume, we have gone back to the future, and then some. It's not 1980. In 2023, the game has changed. The long march of cultural Marxism through our institution has come to pass. The federal government is a behemoth, weaponized against American citizens and conservative values, with freedom and liberty under siege as never before. The task at hand to reverse this tide and restore our republic to its original moorings is too great for any one conservative policy shop to spearhead. It requires the collective action of our movement. With the quickening approach of January 2025, we have 2 years and one chance to get it right. Project 2025 is more than 50 and growing of the nation's leading conservative organizations, joining forces to prepare and seize the day. The axiom goes, personnel is policy, and we need a new generation of Americans to answer the call and come to serve. This book is functionally an invitation for you, the reader, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, and Ms. Smith, to come to Washington or support those who can. Our goal is to assemble an army of aligned, vetted, trained, and prepared conservatives to go to work on day one to deconstruct the administrative state. The project is built on 4 pillars. Pillar 1. This volume puts in place a consensus view of how major federal agencies must be governed, and where disagreement exists brackets out these differences for the next president to choose a path. Pillar 2 is a personal database that allows candidates to build their own professional profiles and our coalition members to review and voice their recommendations. These recommendations will then be collated and shared with the president-elect's team, greatly streamlining the appointment process. Pillar 3 is the Presidential Administration Academy, an online educational system taught by experts from our coalition. For the newcomer, this will explain how the government functions and how to function in government. For the experienced, we will host in-person seminars with advanced training and set the bar for what is expected of senior leadership. In Pillar 4, the playbook, we are forming agency teams and drafting transition plans to move out upon the president's utterance of, "So help me God." As Americans living at the approach of our nation's 250th birthday, we have been given much. As conservatives, we are as much required to steward this precious heritage for the next generation. On behalf of our coalition partners, we thank you and invite you to come join with us at project2025.org. Paul Dans, Director, Project 2025. There is an About the Author section here, which I'm gonna skip because each one gets a paragraph and it's the same old gobbledygook. I worked for this bank, I worked for this conference, blah 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 blah. I should at least read the names to you so you know them when you hear them in the future. Darren Baxt, Jonathan Berry, Lindsay M. Burke, David R. Burton, Adam Kandeub, D-E-U-B, Dustin J. Carmack, Brendan Carr, Benjamin S. Carson, Sr., M.D., Ken Cuccinelli, Rick Dearborn, Veronique de Rugy, probably Rugy, Donald Devine, Diane Furchtgott-Roth, Thomas F. Gilman, Mandy M. Gunasekara, Jean Hamilton, Jennifer Hazelton, Karen Kerrigan, Dennis Dean Kirk, Ken Lassman, Bernard L. McNamee, Christopher Miller, Stephen Moore, Maura Namdar, Peter Navarro, William Perry Pendley, Max Primorak, Roger Severino, Kieran K. Skinner, Brooks D. Tucker, Hans A. von Spakovsky, Russ Vaught, William L. Walton, Paul Winfrey. Editors, Paul Dans, Stephen Groves. I need a drink of water. We're at the 10-minute mark already. I haven't even gotten to the chapters yet. I think I'm going to make each of these chapters 25 to 30 minutes. Just so you know. Here we go. Contributors. The contributors listed below generously volunteered their time and effort to assist the authors in the development and writing of this volume's 30 chapters. The policy views and reform proposals herein are not an all-inclusive catalog of conservative ideas for the next president, nor is there any unanimity among the contributors or the organizations with which they are affiliated with regard to the recommendations. I'm not going to read these names. There's just so many of them. Oh, Monica Crowley's in there. Of course she is. I'm just skipping pages right now. Jeez. A lot of contributors. What's that Family Guy joke in one of the Star Wars parodies? At one point, the Han Solo Peter character says, "I think even the UPS guy got one in this one." There are pages of contributors. It's like a list of your least favorite Twitter handles. Forward. A Promise to America. Kevin D. Roberts, Ph.D. 44 years ago, the United States and the conservative movement were in dire straits. Both had been betrayed by the Washington establishment and were uncertain whom to trust. Both were internally splintered and strategically adrift. Worse still, at that moment of acute vulnerability and division, we found ourselves besieged by existential adversaries, foreign and domestic. The late 1970s were by any measure a historic low point for America, and the political coalition dedicated to preserving its unique legacy of human flourishing and freedom. Today, America and the conservative movement are enduring an era of division and danger akin to the late 1970s. Now, as then, our political class has been discredited by wholesale dishonesty and corruption. Look at America under the ruling and cultural elite today. Inflation is ravaging family budgets. Drug overdose deaths continue to escalate. And children suffer the toxic normalization of transgenderism, with drag queens and pornography invading their school libraries. Overseas, a totalitarian communist dictatorship in Beijing is engaged in a strategic, cultural, and economic Cold War against America's interests, values, and people, all while globalist elites in Washington awaken only slowly to that growing threat. Moreover, low-income communities are drowning in addiction and government dependence. Contemporary elites have even repurposed the worst ingredients of the 1970s radical chic to build the totalitarian cult known today as the Great Awakening. And now, you know what? I read that wrong. They called that a Great Awokening. I'm not even sure if that's grammatically correct. Okay, back to the text. And now, as then, the Republican Party seems to have little understanding about what to do. Most alarming of all, the very moral foundations of our society are in peril. Yet students of history will note that, notwithstanding all those challenges, the late 1970s proved to be the moment when the political right unified itself and the country, and led the United States to historic political, economic, and global victories. The Heritage Foundation is proud to have played a small but pivotal role in that story. It was early 1979, amid stagflation, gas lines, and the Red Army's invasion of Afghanistan, the nadir of Jimmy Carter's days of malaise, that Heritage launched the Mandate for Leadership project. we brought together hundreds of conservative scholars and academics across the conservative movement. Together, this team created a 20-volume, 3,000-page governing handbook containing more than 2,000 conservative policies to reform the federal government and rescue the American people from Washington dysfunction. It was a promise from the conservative movement to the country, confident, specific, and clear. Mandate for Leadership was published in January 1981, the same month Ronald Reagan was sworn into his presidency. By the end of that year, more than 60% of its recommendations had become policy, and Reagan was on his way to ending stagflation, reviving American confidence and prosperity, and winning the Cold War. The bad news today is that our political establishment and cultural elite have once again driven America toward decline. The good news is that we know the way out, even though the challenges today are not what they were in the 1970s. Conservatives should be confident that we can rescue our kids, reclaim our culture, revive our economy, and defeat the anti-American left, at home and abroad. We did it before, and we will do it again. As Ronald Reagan put it, freedom is a fragile thing, and it's never more than one generation away from extinction. It is not ours by way of inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation. This is the duty history has put before us, and the standard by which our generation of conservatives will be judged, as we should not want it any other way. The legacy of Mandate for Leadership, and indeed of the entire Reagan Revolution, is that if conservatives want to save the country, we need a bold and courageous plan. This book is the first step in that plan. The Conservative Promise. This volume, The Conservative Promise, is the opening salvo of the 2025 Presidential Transition Project, launched by the Heritage Foundation and our many partners in April 2022. Its 30 chapters lay out hundreds of clear and concrete policy recommendations for White House offices, cabinet departments, Congress, and agencies, commissions, and boards. Just as important as the scope of the Conservative Promise's recommendations is the breadth of its authorship. This book is the product of more than 400 scholars and policy experts from across the conservative movement and around the country. Contributors include former elected officials, world-renowned economists, and veterans from 4 presidential administrations. This is an agenda prepared by and for conservatives who will be ready on day one of the next administration to save our country from the brink of disaster. The Heritage Foundation is once again facilitating this work. But as our dozens of partners and hundreds of authors will attest, this book is the work of the entire conservative movement. As such, the authors express consensus recommendations already forged, especially along 4 broad fronts that will decide America's future. 1. Restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. 2. Dismantle the administrative state and return self-governance to the American people. 3. Defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats. 4. Secure our God-given individual rights to live freely, what our Constitution calls the blessings of liberty. What makes these 4 pieces of the Conservative Promise so valuable to the next president is that they cut through superficial distractions and focus on the moral and foundational challenges America faces in this moment of history. This was one of the secrets of conservatives' success in the Reagan era, one our generation should emulate. As in the late 1970s, Americans today experience the failures of political and cultural elites in countless ways, in the job market and in the grocery store checkout lines, on the streets and in our schools, in the media and within our institutions. But in truth, these daily dysfunctions are not innumerable problems, but innumerable manifestations of a few core crises. In 1979, the threats we faced were the Soviet Union, the socialism of 1970s liberals, and the predatory deviancy of cultural elites. Reagan defeated these beasts by ignoring their tentacles and striking instead at their hearts. His approach to the Cold War? We win and they lose. His economic agenda? The human dignity of work and its many rewards. His platform in the culture wars? The community of values embodied in these words: family, work, neighborhood, peace, and freedom. This book, and Project 2025 as a whole, will arm the next conservative president with the same kind of strategic clarity, but for a new age. That's the 20-minute mark. I'm going to stop here. Part 2 will start with a chapter titled Promise Number 1. Restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. Fuck single people, right? This recording and all other recordings related to this Project 2025 reading are copyrighted by Douglas Wayne Ricketts. All rights reserved. Unless you agree with me that Project 2025 sucks, then please feel free to use as much of this reading as you want. Thanks for listening.